On Saturday, the 16th of September, we will officially open the new community garden space beside our hall. It has been a 7-year journey, and we're really excited to see this part of the story coming to an end. The old Hawthorne pub beside Bardowie Street Hall seems to have had a particularly colourful reputation. Conversations remembering it normally include big smiles and raised eyebrows. When the gospel mission that previously used the hall had Friday night worship times, they would often enter an amp-off, as they and the pub vied for the loudest sound system. The pub shut at the turn of the century and burnt down in 2002. At that point, the land reverted back to council ownership, a fence was put around it, and it was left derelict. We took ownership of Bardowie Street Hall in 2015 and almost immediately looked over the fence, wondering what could be done with the well-established birch and rubbish forest next door. We approached the council at the beginning of 2016 to try and establish who owned it and if we could lease it, clean it up and make a garden. Ownership had been transferred to the council's arm's-length organisation, City Property, but the positive noises coming from our conversations gave us hope it could be done. When planning the renovation of the hall in 2017, we put in a new side door to open out to the new garden and changed the front of the hall to allow toilet access for the garden without needing the whole hall to be opened. We were fired up by realising that members of the gospel mission had spent years praying for the site, and God seems to have laid the vision for a garden on the hearts of many in Clay. Unfortunately, what apparently should be quick and easy rarely is, and by 2018 we were still chasing City Property for a contract. At that point, the local housing association that's building over 600 houses across the area expressed an interest in the land, and so when we finally received some communication from City Property, it was to tell us the housing association had priority. In the middle of our frustration, despair and anger, it soon became clear that God was still working for his purposes. Having angrily started a phone call with the housing association in the middle of Lidl, we were suddenly offered a partnership. If we took on the maintenance and lease of the land, they would find funding for the clearance and build of the garden as part of their huge development. The excitement of working in partnership and being able to develop an amazing space gave new tenacity to chasing City Property. But by 2021, 5 years after starting, and 2 years after being asked if we could instead buy the site, my hope had dwindled to non-existent, and I threw in the towel. My wife, however, instead sent out a call to prayer, and each day people from the church got together on the land to pray and seek God. After a few days of a level of struggle and intensity, both in prayer and in our own lives, that took us aback, suddenly those praying felt a breakthrough and found it easier to simply worship on the land. Despite this breakthrough, my cynicism found it easier to question how a spiritual breakthrough on land in Possil could make someone in the city chambers sign a contract. And that occupied my thoughts rather than celebrating what God was doing. However, over the next 4 months, all the remaining hurdles toppled, one after another, until in June 2021 we signed a contract for the ownership of the land. The diggers moved in December 2022, and we now have a garden that is beyond our wildest dreams. It is humbling to realise again that as we work towards the vision of his kingdom that God gives us, we only ever see in part what he sees in completeness. And his vision of what can be and how it can be accomplished always far exceeds anything we could begin to dream of ourselves.